All right, everybody. Good morning. Today we're going to be doing the post-production and retouching of the of a residential exterior. This is the image here pre-production. This is the image after I've done the retouching. Pretty significant, but most of it's done with alternate exposure and some stuff in Capture One. So not too intense in the retouching. I'm sure that this will be something you can learn from. We're going to talk a lot about the edges of our frame. We're going to talk about time of day and things like that. So let's right away jump over here into Capture One, and I'll take you through the raw images. So here is the image that I picked as my middle, I call it. The pick, the one that had the person in the right place, that had the right time of day. The camera is essentially pointed due north in this image. Okay, so the house is kinked. It's at an axis. It's off axis here. So this face essentially faces due southwest. This face faces due southeast. The sun is rising to my east over the Tetons. We're on the west side of the Teton Mountains here. So the sunrise was delayed due to the mountains being there. So the sun came up over the mountains. I did a sunrise shot, a dawn shot before that, and then this was my first sort of true daylight shot. So the sun needed to come up over the Tetons and then over a grove of aspen trees that's to my right. And I've waited until just the perfect moment when the sun has illuminated the whole building, but it has not illuminated the entire foreground yet. Let me take you back to dawn here. So here's dawn. I set up in the dark, really. I got all the lights on in the building, you see. And then we waited for dawn here. And then we moved on to a sort of sunrise shot here. And then we moved beyond the sunrise into waiting for the sun to fully come up over the mountain and illuminate the house. So here it is. I'm setting up the shot. I'm finding the composition. You see, there's shot 0075. Here's 0076. So you'll see my composition changes only by, I guess, that much from where I initially set the tripod down. And now we're starting to wait for the clouds to move out and for the sun to come in. So here the sun is just barely starting to get over the top. You can kind of see the Tetons reflected in the window back here, the mountain range. So you can see the sun is just starting to make its way over the mountain here. And just starting to, we have a pretty strong glare angle on this steel band that runs around the roof line. The sun is going to start to make its way down the steel, the Core 10 steel here on the edge of the building. It's going to make its way down. These clouds are sliding to the east over the mountains. I'm starting to take dark exposures in case I need them for the steel back here. We're getting close. I'm starting to experiment. There's a walkway that kind of steps down from the this plinth here and then down into the naturally landscaped area. So I wanted to experiment with putting a person back there. I had my assistant snapping photos of me here and giving me feedback on which step to be on, how to stand, things like that. So I'm walking up the stair here. I think I'm actually walking quite quickly because it's a 25th of a second and I wanted to get myself a little bit of blur. So I'm kind of doing a mini sprint up these stairs, which is, I guess, hard to tell, which is a good thing. So this is the photo I chose as my middle. Okay. Everything about the foreground and house was good except for this far corner here. This far corner was problematic because there was a secondary set of trees that were just out of the frame here, and they were casting their own set of shadows on this corner. So you'll see I wait a little longer and I capture myself an alternate exposure there that we can then blend in. Okay, so we'll just keep going through here. The sky is improving. I liked this exposure. I think this is the one I picked for my alt. It is, I can see there's a little indicator here showing that I processed this one. So I always like it when the the sky provides kind of a counter angle to the building angle. It also leads the viewer toward the building, right? We've got these kind of two lines that point us at the architecture. I got the rest of my building is illuminated, and the softness of the light here, the way it's diffused through the cloud is doing a nice job of giving us the tone that we need in that steel band. So we started to get more light on the landscape, which I didn't necessarily love, and then we started to lose the light as we moved in forward. At this point, I wanted to jump inside so we could start working on our interiors, which I really wanted this penetrating long light for. So we started to work on that. We'll jump back into actually, first, let me quickly turn my camera off here, and we can talk about, you can see the histogram here. It's going to need a little contrast. There's not a ton of super dark and not a ton of super bright. We're going to add that contrast back in Photoshop. So there's your histogram. White balance, is arbitrary because, you're just setting that yourself. I added a little bit of brightness to it because I like to sometimes underexpose a little bit and then brighten the image in order to maintain some of the tone in these very bright areas. High dynamic range, mainly I'm trying to save these really dark areas because we've got this very hard glare angle, so I have to underexpose my image in general. So, I've added some shadow here to get tone. I've maintained my shadows though. I still have some nice dark areas. So, and then beyond that, it's basically just a pretty heavy vignette. I've taken it down to -2 here from my original exposure, just to give myself a nice dark foreground. That has given me a little bit of color contaminant in my sky, a little bit of red that came in from underexposing those highlights, but we'll take care of that in Photoshop as well. So now let's jump over into Photoshop, and I'll take you through the process of how I got from here to here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to steal that alt here. I'm just going to grab this alt and move it outside this group that I made so that we can use that as our alt. Okay, so that's what I did. I processed this secondary exposure. I explained why. Okay, so we're just gonna hold Option and click the layer mask button, which is gonna give us a fully blacked out layer mask, right? So it's all masked away, and now we can brush in what we want. So we're gonna start with this most important bit, which is the glare on the steel, and also the completion of our light over here. So you can see that our underexposed soft light is just basically a perfect match to our other light here. So we're just going to brush in that side. We don't need to touch any of this stuff here. We're going to brush in this Core 10. Thankfully it was a still morning, so I didn't have leaves moving it around at all. I do know that this image is registered pretty much perfectly, so I don't need to check that. But there you go. So that helped, and that's fun. There's a bird in that tree back there. I didn't notice that ever. A couple of birds even. Okay, so that's that. Now we're gonna brush in using a very soft brush. Okay, so you can see here I'm using a 0% hardness brush. I'm gonna go ahead and set it to 5,000 pixels because we're working on a 100 megapixel file here. And I'm at 10% flow, 100% opacity. So I'm gonna just start to brush white into my mask here to swap our sky out. Okay, so we're gonna be pretty loose with it up here, and as we approach the house, I'm just gonna start to pull my brush size down a bit, and then we'll go ahead and jump in and make sure that we haven't wounded ourselves here in our image in any place. We want to make sure that we haven't brushed too much into our house where it's going to make a big difference. We'll take a look at that map by Option clicking the mask. Okay, so that's what my mask looks like, just so you can see what it's doing. I think I need to brush a little bit more into the into this close proximity to the house here to make sure we don't have some halo around the house. So that's looking quite nice. We're going to zoom in now on the edge of the home here and make sure that we haven't done too much damage to it. So the what it did to the steel, I don't mind. What it did to the concrete here, I do mind, because it's starting to get a little close in tone to the sky behind it, and I want to be really sure that it does a nice job of separating itself from the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw a nice little marquee around the, looks like that was a little bit off. A nice little marquee around the sky, and just delete that back out of the image. Okay, so now you can see there's my there's the part that I've deleted. Again, I don't mind what it did to the steel. It's just a tiny bit of soft darkening, and that's fine with me. That reads better now, though. We have this center, you know, poured in place concrete board form element is really important to the design. I want to make sure that it reads well. So, all right, that's looking pretty nice for my drop in. Now we need to go in and make a retouch layer here. So it's just a new transparent layer, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and start to identify problem areas and remove them. So first and foremost, I wanna always respect the edges of my image. Little random branches that stick in from a tree that's completely disembodied is not something that we ever need, unless it's an entire, you know, group of branches that comes in and overhangs the architecture in a way that vignettes it, or something. You know, if we had a whole bunch of huge branches that leaned over the house, I'd be fine with that because it would have been an intentional move. But little things like that, not so good. We'll do the same here. Don't love these little random ones here on the very edge of my frame. You got to think about how, you know, this will be seen, right? It'll be seen likely on white, either on a website or in print. So, you know, if you look at this on white, you just want to take a look and see, you know, little tiny things that stick in from the side are just gonna be weird and distracting. It's also nice. It's good to check your image on white. I already know I'm gonna add some. Brightness to my lights with using luminosity masks a little later on, but it's really good to check the image against white. You don't want to retouch on white, and you don't want to retouch on black, because it's going to give you a you know, artificial sense of you know, brightness basically on your image, which you want to steer clear of. I think retouching on middle gray is the best way to get yourself a nice balanced feel at the end of your image, and then you can check it against dark, you can check it against light, and make sure that your darks and your lights really do feel good. So next thing, I can see I have some little branches that are sticking over the top excuse me, the top of the steel here, and the way that they interact with the aspen tree that's here is something I really don't like. You know, it's like little extra tendrils that don't really belong to this tree. You know, these trees make sense to me. You can see there's a forest beyond. We're not going to mess with those. You know, it's part of this tree line, but that one random one, again, not helping. There's a couple of things in the architecture I want to take out. There's some steel rod here that's part of the, you can see a bunch of it down here, right? I don't mind this because it's rhythmic. Here we just had one or two random pieces of it that stuck up and just look like mistakes. So we're going to remove those. There's a security camera along here somewhere. I'm going to take care of that. And then next thing we're going to do is move on to the tree supports, which I'm not a fan of. Okay. Yeah. So I think, you know, the edges of our frame look very nice. The edges of our house look very nice next. The next thing is, whenever you have new landscaping in residential, or, you know, just anywhere there's new landscaping, they oftentimes support the trees with either stakes and straps, or you know, these poles and straps, or just tying them straight to the tree, so the tree doesn't grow crookedly, and it doesn't, you know, while the root ball develops, it doesn't blow over. Those just, they scream like this is brand new landscaping to me. So I always like to remove them if I can. So, some of these will be able to be removed with the remove tool. Others are going to only be able to be worked on with the clone stamp tool, because there's just going to be too much kind of specificity in the in the vegetation that isn't going to look right if it's just made random. So like here's a case where we're going to try the remove tool, but we're going to probably have to go back and fix some things with the clone stamp, I'm guessing. Yeah, so it's kind of created this line within it, and it's the noise, the like artifacting here is just a little different feeling than the adjacent branches. So we're just going to go ahead and grab a couple of other samples and just kind of randomly brush those back into the part that was fixed, just so that we don't have that perfectly vertical line where things are all a little bit off, right? So those feel good. These are not straps, obviously. They're pieces of architecture here, these rails. They're clean. You can see the handle. You can see the steel. I don't think we need to, we see the shadow of it. We don't need to mess with those. So those two trees are looking good. This one, we see a little bit of strap action here. We're going to get rid of that, and then we'll move on to the main event, which is going to be the foreground tree that has that sort of, I don't like the way that did that. We're going to just do that again. I'm going to just undo that. There. I'm going to undo that, and then I'm going to just take this out in two pieces. I don't like the way it messed up this forking branch here. Okay, that's nice, yeah? I'm assuming that'll do a good job. Yes, did a perfect job. Okay, very good. So this is the one that we need to make sure we really get right? So there's a few different ways to do this. We're just going to do it almost exclusively, probably exclusively with the clone stamp here. So for starters, we're going to remove the main piece of the pole that's not covering the trunk. Then we're going to remove the trunk, but we're going to kind of overspray it so that we make some mistakes that we have to go back and fix. But it's easier to get the trunk just right and then go back and cut the trunk out of a selection and then fix that. So we're going to try to take pieces that line up with the existing tall grasses here. See, like this one continues into that one. We're just going to get a little bit more random piece here that can stick up and then terminate. And again, I'm gonna cut into my trunk here, and then we're gonna actually select the trunk itself, probably from right here where it starts to get a little more uniform. And we're just gonna continue this trunk. Again, I'm not gonna worry about where there's grass growing over the trunk. I'm not gonna worry about where there's a little bit of a dark spot here that I'm not in love with. I'm gonna lighten that up slightly. Okay, so that's getting pretty close to feeling complete. This part will come back and let's see, what do we need to do? Oops, didn't mean to click that. This part will grab some pieces of this area adjacent here. Let's see, it needs to kind of terminate there. The trunk does get smaller here a bit. There we go. Okay, so that looks complete. Almost there. I'm going to take a kind of slightly less opaque brush. I just moved it down from like 70% to 10% here, and I'm just kind of coloring the trunk in a little bit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to select the trunk itself. Okay. And then we're going to remove it. We're going to do an inverse selection, and then we're going to go in to all the parts around the trunk that are a little funny. Okay, so we've got a selection, Command Option I, excuse me, and we're going to go back here, and we're just going to use that selection as our edge here. We'll use 70% flow on our clone stamp again here, and we'll just go in and make our passes. We can, extend our branches now so they hit the trunk. Clean up any little problems that we made for ourselves. There's a little bit of this like little strap here. We gotta fix that. Extend this into there. without the repeater, please. How are we gonna do that? Maybe we go down with it so it meets down here. It's probably fine. Just wanna get rid of some of these these zebra stripes that we've created for ourselves. Okay, a couple of them are fine. Makes sense that the light is sort of, it's foliated, right? It's gonna be filtered. Okay, we're getting close here. This branch needs to extend. We'll get rid of that little extra grass that was up there, and then we'll grab some pieces of concrete from the opposite side, and we'll take a look at this, okay? In context now, right? We want to look at it at scale first. It appears nice from here. Now we'll look at it, you know, kind of at print resolution. You know, a little bit iffy right here. We'll see if we can clean that up a little bit, just crisp it up a little bit, add a little bit of tone that is different than the rest of the tone, so that it feels like light is kind of filtering through here, right? Feels better. Yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. So that's a pretty big improvement there from the from that big branch, right? So enough of that. What is this little, oh, okay, some little flower heads, we'll leave those. That's feeling good. Now we're gonna go from the kind of small scale retouching that we've been doing into the more global adjustment kind of stuff that we wanna do, right? So let's take a, because of our vignette, we've been left with a tiny bit of red kind of contaminant in our image for some reason, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick mask. So I've hit Q and jumped into quick mask here. And I'm just, anywhere that there's a little bit of red in the image, I'm going to go ahead and brush against, we're gonna make a new curves layer. We're gonna change it to the red channel, and we're just gonna take a little bit of red out. It's probably only that much red, right? But you can see how red this edge was here compared to its sister right over here, right? You see that it's subtle, but it'll make the sky look less just off, right? We've just given it a little bit of cleanup. We're gonna lighten these parts of the sky with a luminosity mask a little later on, which will help us with the you know, with them feeling a little bit, you know, maybe discolored as well. So that'll get cleaned up as well. But that's a nice, you know, quick little move. One thing I didn't mention, the architect gave me feedback on this image when I produced it, and then we went back and made an edit here, that this is called Core 10 steel. It's steel that rusts to this point, and then it you know, stays that way. It's very beautiful. It's sort of this textured, colored steel that will stay this way. It's really nice. But because we had this very early morning warm light on it, it just read a little oranger than it did in the other than in some of the other more color accurate you know, images from this project. So they asked that I just take a little bit of orange out. So what I'm doing is making a selection. I've selected all of the all the steel, and then I'm just going in. You can see the marquee. I'll put it against this black here so you can see it a little bit better. So you can see the marquee tool. It has a little plus there, right? If you hold if you hold Option, it'll change from add to selection to remove from selection. So up here, right above my picture, right there, add to selection, and then if you mouse over that, it's subtract from selection. So Option does the same thing for you. So we're just hitting Option when we first click, and then you can release Option, and you can go around and you see you have that little minus. So we're just subtracting from our selection using the marquee tool, or I'm sorry, using the polygonal lasso tool. So we're gonna do it one more time here. Another trick that I'll show you with masks is once you have a selection made, if you hit Q, jumping into quick mask, it will, you know, that will be your mask, okay? So if you need to do something like remove a little bit of whatever you want to call this, right? Some tall grass from your selection. You can just brush white against that, right? And just take a little bit of it out. And then when you hit Q again, it'll move you back into your essentially what you were doing with the lasso. And you'll have your selection made, you know, excluding these parts. Instead of trying to trace around them, you can kind of go back and forth between making a soft brush selection and a very hard lasso selection. So we'll now just make a new hue saturation layer here, and we will just desaturate maybe -10 or -15. That's probably enough there. I'm at -12. So it'll be subtle again, but we've just taken a bit of that orange out, right? That the architect didn't love. So that's an easy thing for us to do. Okay, we're getting close. The last thing that I kind of want to do here is go ahead and brush in a little more magic into this foreground, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to brighten up the, so we need to, I've hit Q and I've now got a black brush, so I'm brushing in this red color. I want to kind of exaggerate the light that's pouring through the aspens here and across the tops of our tufts of grass, okay? So I'm just sort of going in with different size brushes and doing strokes so that it'll kind of add to this magic, okay? So there, I'm jumped out of quick mask by hitting Q again. I'm gonna make a new curves layer here, and I'll brighten that up just very slightly, just a little bit. And then I'm gonna do another one. So I'm gonna hit Q again, and now I'm gonna take a much larger brush here, and I'm gonna brush down the dark parts of my image here. Because again, I'm just looking to add some drama to this foreground grass and just accentuate the vignette that it had. Okay, so that's good. Last thing I might do is just take a pretty nice broad brush and just open up this part of the house just a tiny bit, this foreground bit, okay? Yep, just that much. Just so it isn't quite so dark. Very close now. We're gonna go into luminosity masks in just a second, but first I wanna just adjust a little bit of color. I'm gonna make a new curves layer and go ahead and add, just take a little, this whole image just seems to have a little bit of a blue cast to me. So I'm gonna take maybe 2 points of blue out, maybe add a point of red. Doesn't feel green or magenta to me, so I'm gonna not touch that channel. Might just be a sliver magenta actually. I'm gonna add 1 point of green to it. That feels a little better. Okay, so there's the difference. It's feeling a little cold to now it's feeling a little more warm. Nice, morning light, inviting and warm. So 2 more things. First is gonna be, this just feels a little muddy, this haze layer down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and brush in a little bit of quick mask here, and then I'm gonna go ahead and remove it from this part of the house just to be double sure. Okay, so now you can see our cue goes right there, stops right there. And we're just gonna brighten that up just a tiny bit. There, just a small move, but it kind of cut through some of that muddy haze we had on the horizon. It looks like it bled into this. I can brush that away from the blue a little bit there so that it's just affecting the cloud now. Happy with that. You guys know how to make luminosity masks by now. I have a tutorial on it. If you don't know, go find the tutorial. It's in my short form tutorials playlist. But what we're gonna do here is just we'll take a look at our luminosity masks. So here's my lights, here's my lighters, here's my lightest. So lightest probably isn't gonna hit the clouds enough. We're probably gonna wanna take my lighters here and grab that mask. So I'm gonna just command click the channel here, and then I'm going to make myself a new curves layer, and we're gonna brighten that up a bit. I don't want to brighten the whole everything up, so I'm gonna go ahead and make it an S curve so that we don't pull all these tones up that are down here. Feels good on the sky. Feels a little heavy on the building itself, so I'm just gonna go in with a really big soft black brush and brush it. You can see what it's doing here, so I'm just brushing it away from the house a little bit. We don't have to be super exact with this, but you can see there it's now no longer affecting the house. Maybe a little bit heavy-handed here. I could probably just dial this back a tiny bit. Let's check it against white now. See, now these feel better, right? These clouds, they feel a little more cloudy. Where's my... I wonder where my curve is that was for the sky, right here. Now it appears, I just feel like I have a little bit of red right here. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of that blue tone. That instantly fixed it, right? Since I already had that layer where we fixed this part, it just seemed like it was just touching here a little bit. So that fixed that. I'm gonna throw us back. Well, let's look at us on a black background as well. Feeling very nice to me. The last thing I'm gonna do is just take my dark tones or my darkers. I'm gonna make a curve here. And I'm just gonna add a sliver of contrast, and I'm talking just a sliver. You see how subtle it is, but it does liven up my foreground and my house just a little bit here. So just adding a little bit of local contrast to that. So let's group this all up here, and we will turn it off and turn it on. Feeling good? Yeah? I'll turn myself back to medium gray. I'll turn my camera off so you guys can see the entire image here. So there it is, retouched. The after, there's the before, after, before, after, before, after, and before. So there you guys go. That is a residential exterior. Not a ton of retouching on it. Primarily we used a nice alternate exposure, which made a huge difference, right? We were able to brush down that back volume and make it match the rest of the house a little bit. We were able to swap out that sky, so we have a really nice, direct line that aims our eye right toward the building. This was a beautiful project, one of my favorites I've ever been able to work on. The team was really awesome. The homeowner was so great. Really just a dream to be there. There's a little cold trout stream that ran through the field. There was these aspens were beautiful. The Tetons were off to the side. Just hard to spend a bad minute in that house. Once this landscape develops, 5 years from now even, it's just gonna be just a masterpiece. This piece of property is. Very lucky, the folks who get to live here and just watch the snow fall and watch the animals in their field and watch the Tetons change. Just good for them. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the suggestions. It's been a fun journey kind of walking through all the process with you guys. Stick around and watch for more. There'll be more coming. So thank you all. Have a fine day.